The moment you're experiencing, listen to me, no one has ever experienced before, period.
Yeah.
And they never will, and they never have.
The question is not whether God exists. The question is whether or not you're willing to stop talking long enough to listen.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's the surrender of the courage to change the things I can, to actually act if we can, to shift, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Welcome to this special book launch event. We're celebrating the release of Michael Singer's new book, Wisdom Untethered, The Time for Questions. Tony and Sage, Michael, welcome.
Nice to see you, Tammy.
Hello, hello.
Mickey, so great to be back with you. It's been way too long. This book is extraordinary.
Wonderful.
Untethered Soul really became a living gift for us. We shared it through every holiday. We gifted it for birthdays, and chapter 17 of Living Untethered came alive within me and was so extraordinarily profound.
His essence is what I think the truth of something is. How does it really work in your life? How do you really live? It's not what you understand intellectually. And Mickey is an embodiment of that spiritual development,
True.
which is just love. He's a pure love, and we just love him personally. And we want everyone to pick up this book, Wisdom Untethered, because I think the format of asking and answering the questions feels like you're in his direct presence,
Yes.
where you're with him personally and you're just able to ask, and that wisdom just comes pouring through to you. So I can't say enough about the book itself. We're fans of all his books, but this might be my favorite.
Michael, you write in the preface, there are 200 questions in this book, but ultimately, life is asking you a single question. Are you willing to let go?
I learned my spirituality through life. Life is my teacher, right? I have great teachers, right? But in the end, it seems like the experiences of life are what have molded the understanding that I have. So letting go is the essence of everything I've learned. Some people think it means letting go of life, letting go of what you want, letting go of your inspiration, your passion. It's not. Letting go in truth, in reality, is about something you do inside yourself. But to understand letting go, you have to understand why it's meaningful to let go and why it works. All of us, and that includes all of us, have issues in life. Different things that happen at different times, some of them big, some of them small, that we have some trouble with. And what you notice is, if you're conscious, and everybody's conscious, the question is, are you aware enough to see it? Is that you close. That when things happen that are not comfortable to you, there's this tendency to close your heart, your mind becomes negative, and the energy inside becomes tense, becomes tight, becomes anxious. And we all live with that kind of thing. And most people feel that the meaning of their life is to not have that happen, to somehow structure people, places, things all the time in life so that when they come in, they cause a nice feeling, at least not a negative feeling. And that's very difficult, and it creates stress within itself to try to manipulate everything. So letting go says, not do you close, do you get tense? Why? Why does anything in life bother you? And what you'll find if you watch, I'll do a crash course, is that what you've done with these situations that are uncomfortable to you is you try to not feel them. Typical Freudian stuff, suppressing, repressing, denial, or basically resistance. And resistance means that you're in there consciously pushing away the experience. We do it all the time, whether we realize it or not. Somebody says something to us that we don't like. We try not to, feel it. We argue back. We get defensive. We push against the energy that's coming in. What happens is it stays, and that's just the reality. It stays inside of you. The bigger the thing is, the longer it's lasted, the more it affects your life for the rest of your life. There are things that happen in your childhood that are still in there bothering you. People say things like, I don't like talking about that. Why do you keep talking about that? And you just realize you're protecting yourself. You're always protecting yourself. And some people are very good at manipulating the outside so they don't have to face that as much, but they're all facing it. The very fact that you have to manipulate, that you have to control and try to make things be the way you want is just a form of outer repression. It's a form of pushing the energy away before it comes inside. But when it comes inside, you start noticing that what I do with it is I push it away. I don't want to experience it. I have a conversation with somebody, and after it's over, I'm thinking, oh, why did I say that? Maybe I should have said this. Oh my God. Like you just have these issues going on inside where you can't handle the energy that's coming in. Letting go means a very specific thing. It means you remain centered and conscious enough to watch yourself do that. It's not that you don't do it. Can you watch yourself resist what you don't like coming in? Then what do? Once you notice, you say, is this worth resisting? Is it worth complaining because there's a driver in front of me? Believe me, when you talk to the driver in front of you, they don't hear you. You know that, all right? But you still do it. And then you complain when you get to work. Oh my God, they drove so slow. It's terrible. All right. And you start getting conscious enough to say, I'm doing this to myself. I'm resisting an energy with no cost benefit analysis at all. I'm not gaining anything from doing that. Is there a way to not do that? And the answer is yes, there is. And the key word is relaxation. That when it comes in, you will see yourself start to tense. Relax. Let go of your shoulders, let go of your tummy, let go of your buttocks. Just let go, both outside and inside. But it's not comfortable, it's not natural, because you're trying to protect yourself from something that you don't need protection from. So it boils down to you wake up and realize I'm causing myself trouble by getting all tense and upset. So you learn to relax. When you do it with small things, they're fun. Everyone writes me, oh my God, you changed my life. I didn't do anything. I just taught you how to relax inside instead of resisting. When you do that, it doesn't leave as deep of an impression on you that it would have otherwise. You don't end up talking about the driver. You know, 3 blocks later, they turn off the road. Fine. You let it go. You just let go of the resistance and you start realizing that you have the ability to do this. You have the ability to relax in the face of discomfort. And when you do this, the discomfort passes through. And you finally realize that the only reason it was just uncomfortable is because you were resisting. It's like judo, right? If you don't resist, the energy passes through you. If you don't resist these small things, the energy passes through. That's what letting go is. Nobody's terribly good at it to start with, I guarantee that, because the natural reaction is to protect. And you do more and more until eventually you catch on that, wait a minute, I'm blocking a beautiful energy inside of me. It didn't have to stop flowing because Sally didn't say hello, because the driver wasn't driving the way I want. I don't want to trade that beautiful, high, passionate, inspiring energy that's inside of me to close about stupid things. And you start catching on, and it gets higher and higher and higher until eventually the energy becomes so strong inside that it doesn't stop flowing. It just flows all the time, every moment, no matter what happens. And if something happens that starts to close you, you say, am I willing to trade love, beauty, inspiration, passion, because somebody did something I didn't like? And the next thing you know, you're letting go of even the things you didn't want. And you realize, hey, life's a lot more fun than I was making it.
One of the beautiful things that I think that Michael has offered, myself at least, I have a lot of yang, he has a lot of yin. And so my world has been about intention, set the outcome, make it happen, break through. And I believe that life calls for holism, that we need to have all these parts of ourself alive. And, I remember when I first read his first book, and even before I met him, it was like letting go. Like, no, I need to make this happen, And, but what I began to realize is that at my very best, letting go is what occurs. When I'm on stage and someone stands up and they're suicidal or, they made $1 billion and they're bored. I mean, you never know what someone's going to say. And I've, done it for 49 years. So what happens is magic always happens, but the magic is because I wouldn't have thought of it as letting go. To me, it's just I relax, and I think that's the biggest difference. Like sometimes language gets in the way because of whatever samskara or whatever anchors we might have, whatever language you want to use. And so for me, what you just said again, Mickey, about it's really letting go, it's relaxing and releasing. I relax in those moments completely. I drop into a place where I'm not there. And another word for relaxing for me really just means trust. It's a total trust that I'll be guided, that if this person stood up in this moment, there's a higher purpose for it. It's meant to be, and I'll be guided to do it. I don't have to, there's no thinking in the process. It's relax, it's let go. And, I wouldn't have said let go before, but that's it, and flow. And so I found, the greatest peak performers I've worked with as leaders or sports figures, they all prepare and then they let go. We not necessarily call that, but you relax into it. If you're tense and you're trying to perform, you're trying to perform as opposed to God just flowing through you. So for me, I think the whole idea of surrender and letting go for someone who's an achiever-oriented person seems very foreign to them. But it isn't foreign at all. It is actually what you do when you achieve the most, when you give the most, when you contribute the most.
Hmm. Mickey, I remember being here in our home and we were going through a legal circumstance that was much less pleasant. And you said, Sage, just keep letting go. And one day you'll keep letting go, and this will just all dissolve and go away. I remember going through it and having waves of discomfort and waves of fear, waves of terror, waves of overwhelm. And I remember just having that North Star. It was a specific situation that I was just like, okay, I'm just going to keep letting go in the name of my peace and in the name of my happiness. And Mickey, I did. And it was so demonstrative because it was a living, breathing example of something so acute. It's just become a way of being. And as we tune in and we surrender to what is, it's certainly been my experience is that we connect to this intrinsic flow of life, this, divine wisdom and divine intelligence that's guided us all to this moment in time. The deeper I let go and just surrender to something more, that life is so beautiful and surprising.
It's funny, Tony mentioned that some people think that we're different, right? That he's a pusher and a fighter and this and that. But ultimately, he's very intuitive. I've
Mm,
seen him, I've watched him work, and that's where all his power comes from. It doesn't come from manipulation and trying and striving. No, it comes from being in tune, all right? But intuition is, how about I do it this way? Not mind. That
mm,
is, I'll be very zen about it, all right? It's not mind. Why? Mind is always talking. Mind has all these ideas, these concepts, these views, these opinions, these preferences, these likes, and not likes. It's very, very busy. You know that, right? And sometimes it's hard to stop. When that's going on, it's not intuition. That's mental thinking. That's trying to figure it out with the past experiences you've had. How, based on those, how do I decide how to act, what to do, what to write? People get writer's block, let's say, all right? And because they're trying to think it out. The truth of the matter is, when the mind quiets down, there's a higher energy, a much clearer energy. It actually, I'm not getting into spirituality, but it comes from consciousness itself. It comes from the witness. The fact that you're in there noticing. If you're in there noticing that the mind is being neurotic, you're not neurotic. You're watching a neurotic mind. If you're in there watching a mind that seems to be depressed, you're not depressed. You're noticing a depressed mind. And that's a real freeing thing to understand that you can free yourself. And intuition basically says there's something coming in from a higher plane. I don't want to get mystical. It's just from some has more knowledge, there's more wisdom. Okay. It just happens naturally if you're out of the way. If you're not out of the way, all you hear is your mind. All you do is get tense, anxious. Did I make the right decision? And so on. The answer is to quiet the mind down, not to seek intuition. It will be naturally there.
Mental projections, I think, are things you're trying to manufacture in response to your fear or your desire. Intuition just flows without any thought. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's exactly what I'm describing on stage. And if somebody stands up and it just, you step in the moment without me. It's a physical stepping. I step physically out off that stage to go towards the person. And as I'm moving towards that person, it's already done. And it's not I'm so smart. It's not that I have all the answers. It's just I just know it, and because I really believe that when you're trying to serve something greater than yourself, that is when grace flows. And so my intention is nothing but to serve them, and I know it will be done, and I know it's not me. And a combination of those somehow makes it flow. But I love something that you said in the book, Mickey, that I just thought was awesome. You said, I may not quoting exactly, but you said the question is not whether God exists. The question is whether or not you're willing to stop talking long enough to listen.
That's
Because most people have so much mental chatter inside their head that they're not able to let that flow come through. It happens so fast. It's not even like listening. To me, it's like feeling, and it just happens.
Right.
And so I know that difference versus when I'm trying to find a solution. Even in creating things, we're privileged enough to feed a lot of people. We fed a billion people here because I got fed when I was 11 years old and our family had no food. Now we're doing a 100 billion meal thing. And I woke up on January 1 with this intuition. It's like, there was a question first. It's like, how would I make this year feel like one of the best years of my life? I was like, I'm going to fulfill the balance of those 100 billion meals. We had 62 billion meals we've done. And I had no idea how I was going to do it. It was just like total belief and trust. And then, as Mickey said, suddenly you get, ideas start flashing through that you've not done anything for. And then people start calling me and things start happening. And we're going to complete it more than that this year. Someone's providing 40 billion meals, one country I'm working with. I
Wow.
came up with another, and these things just flow. So I
Yes.
think the difference is if it's effortful, it's usually thinking. If it's
Mhm.
flow, it's usually intuition. And I think that intuition does have an intention. I don't know if Mickey, if you agree with that. There's a higher intention, but my intention is not attached to the outcome. Ask that or something greater be done. And I trust that whatever is right, it's thy will be done, not my will be done, right? That flow. But there is an intention in my experience. But then there's that total trust and that total belief. And it happens. It happened after a while. It happens so consistently that you don't question anymore. You just know, especially when you're trying to serve something more than yourself.
I also noticed for myself, it's everything that led up to this conversation and the letting go. It's my experience that we begin to notice. And we're sensorial beings, and there's so much information that's happening within that as a younger version of myself, I tuned out because I had too much activity happening in mind. And what I recognize is sometimes it's a sense of things. Like we all know what it's like to walk in somewhere and feel uneasy. Feel uneasy. That's information or to feel like an electrical kind of an impulse of like, gosh, this feels aligned. I feel like it goes up and down. I always tell them I feel God in my tush because that's where I feel like a yes. And it sounds
She
ridiculous.
does.
I really do because it
That's not
feels.
where it shows up for me, just so you know.
It could be that Shakti energy, but I think we're sensing and perceiving energetically at all times, and it's a matter of noticing. And my no it feels like uneasiness in my gut. And then a yes just feels, I'm not hearing perfection through, I'm not even per se seeing it. It's sensation. And I look at that as information, and then that leads to flow. And I'm always so humbled by, as we tune into life, as we connect to life, not only externally, but internally, there's just so much information that's so beautiful and makes life kinder and saner. When I think of different stages of my life, when I had a sense of something and I ignored it, that usually always ended up being a painful circumstance. And yet I had a sense ahead of time. I didn't act on it. I wasn't true to that inner sense of knowing. And Mickey, that's one of the most powerful, profound gifts that you've bestowed upon so many of us, because the path of letting go, the outcome of that, or one of the gifts or the abundance of that, the inner abundance, is actually tuning in and noticing this communion of information that's being offered within us and around us. And I really noticed a difference with that at this stage of my life. So thank you, Mickey.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is prayer effective? And what is the highest form of prayer?
Of course, prayer is effective, but it goes deeper than that. All right. It's well, first, why is prayer effective? If for no other reason, when you're into science, we have energy. We emanate energy. Everybody knows that, right? Tony's got tons of it, right? And that's why people love to be around him and so on, right? And great saints are the same way, right? You emanate energy. Yeah, emanate energy, right? That energy is not limited to your body or aura, right? It can travel around the world, right? And thoughts can travel around the world. There's energy is not limited to a physical space. So prayer can heal. Prayer can do all kinds of things. And it's very beautiful. The question you ask after that is, what is the highest form of prayer? I want to
Mm,
pray, not my will, but thy will. Not I pray that I get what I want. So neat
yes.
that Christ taught that. I love that. I use it all the time. Not my will, that thy will is phenomenal to live off of. It basically means God knows what he's doing and I don't. And if I'm going to base what I want based on what I want, based on my experience, my ego, You can do it, right? And you can attract to yourself what you want. But the question becomes, is there a higher way to live than getting what you want and avoiding what you don't want? Because that's very minimally oriented. And so basically, you start understanding that you have the right, and in fact, the obligation to pray for wisdom. You have the right for openness. You have the right to pray for the strength of letting go of yourself. And that's what it all boils down to, is letting go of yourself. The more you let go of yourself, the more everybody's blessed, right? And you start praying for help to raise yourself, to free yourself, to liberate, so that you can serve all of humanity. And that's the highest prayer, self-realization, enlightenment, awakening, and that becomes the pole star of your life. When you reach that high, to where the pole star of your life is liberation, is freedom, is a state of oneness with the universe, everything else falls in place. Everything below it falls in place. You don't have to do anything. That to me is the highest prayer, the prayer for self-realization, the prayer for enlightenment.
It's beautiful. It's interesting. I had growing up conflicts with prayer. I was raised Christian. My mom was early in her life was a Christian school teacher, Sunday school teacher, and I went through a stage of life with like, is there a God? Probably because I had so much chatter in my head, Mickey, at the time. And so then I started searching, and I went to a different church every Sunday. I even went to the West Virginia church where they had snakes, and I went by a
Oh,
Mormon church, and these friends of mine said, "Oh, you can't go there," so I went there, of course, and that's where I started journaling, and I pulled things from all of them. But the thing that always bothered me about the way I thought people use prayer that still doesn't ring true for me is, I'm praying for my football team to win over yours, my need
that's right.
versus yours. It's like, I can't believe God would pick sides, just so I think for a period of time I threw kind of prayer out, because like, what are you doing asking for yourself? And then my prayer became more clear and more simple. And I wear these silly baseball caps all the time, and it's not about being lucky. And inside it says, "Be a blessing." Underneath it says, "You'll be blessed." My prayer is to be a blessing to the people that I meet in some way, to touch their lives, to be guided in some way to do it. And that has no conflicts for me. And my prayer before I go on stage always is,
Mhm.
use me, Lord. I
Wow.
just pray that I'll be used for a greater good. And then I make this physical move of my body that awakens my nervous system. I do my prayer, use me, and then I walk out on that stage, and it's like, it doesn't matter 12 hours or 50 hours, 4 days in a row. I'm used, and because I think what you said, it's praying for, it's the same thing as, thy will be done, not my will be done. It's like, I'm here to serve a greater purpose than myself. And I have no conflicts with that prayer.
Mhm.
My wife, though, is even more prayerful from the spectrum of, even on, she prayed for things and she didn't see that conflict. She saw as the good that happens within my life is the good for the greater good for everything. So she was more abundant to herself with prayers and to other people. And so
Uh-huh.
she's opened me more to that as well. But I really think that the use of prayer when it's purely just yourself is a limited use of prayer, let's say at best, in my intention. But I think the higher prayer that you're describing of our unfolding of the greater good of thy will be done, to me is so beautiful. And it's, when you say it, it's moving, it's not intellectual.
Yeah.
You feel the spirit of it when you communicate, I think, with whatever you consider the God of your understanding in that way. It's very powerful.
Mhm. And Mickey, I love that you mentioned thy will be done, because it's such a kind clarity to know that if something feels on the surface like failure, it's, there's these iteration and of life constantly evolving and shifting. And yet, if you truly put your faith in creation and intelligence greater than our own, there's such freedom in that, because you trust in that flow once again. And for myself, I experience prayer as like a living conversation, and Mickey, really the two I love that you spoke about prayer, by the way, in this book so extensively, because I really look at it as a living conversation of noticing and appreciating, and waking up in the morning and noticing that we're alive, that there's life within us, and it's like, thank you for the miracle of life happening within me now. Like, that's just blows my mind that life is happening within us and we did nothing to beat our heart. We are gifted with this intelligence within us. And, there's been such a mass exodus of religion And I feel that so many people are hungry to find their way back home and to have a really meaningful life, human life, but a spiritual life, that they experience the sacred and the holy. And I really feel that this book, Wisdom Untethered, Mickey, is really a way for people to tap into that. And you provide such clarity through the inquiry of prayer. I enjoyed every word of it. And it's definitely, I just find it to be so powerful and so freeing to be able to liberate people and show them a way. And that juxtaposition of prayer, I look at like the letting go and the meditation as the emptying out, which creates the openness and the spaciousness for us to be able to perceive and to notice the miracle of life that's happening within this moment now. And I think that that is one of the highest complementary prayers to thy will being done. It's really falling in love with what is and giving thanks for what is, because innocently, I'll speak for myself, there was so much that I missed and that I wasn't thankful for. Um, as a younger version of myself. And it just makes life so beautiful when we notice how truly supported each and every one of us are. So, anyways, that's been my experience at prayer.
I also just think that the most powerful prayer to me is two-word prayer that goes beyond the two words because it goes in the soul spirits. Thank you.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
appreciation is to me a form of prayer. It's maybe the most important prayer of all. The appreciation for all that we have in this life, the breath that we breathe, the heart that our beats,
Mm.
the love that we share.
It's a
So
gift.
the more you acknowledge grace, the more grace that you experience in your life, I think. And
Yes.
it's like we all do our part, but then there's grace, right? There's the part that's way beyond us that is really most of our lives that we take for granted that we've manufactured, when in fact it's all a gift.
Dealing with fear, how do I work with it in a compassionate way?
I know Tony works a lot with fear, right? So I've seen him work with people, and it's very beautiful, right? My experience, which again, I've been doing this for what, 55 years, so I learned a few things, all right, is you start off with not fearing fear. If you fear fear, you're going to suppress it. If you suppress it, it grows, period. Anything you push away stays in there. And of course, fear we're afraid of, right? So the first step is to sit there and say, I can handle this. All right. And don't start with small things, not big things. Right? That instead of saying, I can't handle what you said, I can't handle what you did, I can't handle the thought that you might leave me. Right. It has to start off with, of course I can. I just haven't worked at it. All right. I can handle fear. So you're willing to feel it when it comes up. You don't push it away. You don't hate it. You don't fear it. Right. And you realize that there's a lower part of your being that, whether it be physiological evolution, the animals run away, right? People run away, all right, just like animals do. And you start realizing, I don't have to run away. I can sit with this. I can feel this fear. It's not a matter of not feeling fear. It's a matter of being able to handle the feeling of fear. It's a very natural feeling, especially at the physiological level, right? And then we built that into a psychological mess, believe me. And so you sit there and say, I can handle this. That's the first way you handle fear, is you say, I can handle this. I'm going to learn to handle this. If I can't do it right now, that's fine. If I fall back down, I'll get back up. But you just keep working with the understanding that fear is a natural thing, but you have the ability to work with it and raise it up. And if you do that, it's amazing. It diminishes, right? When you let go of that fear, excuse me, that you were afraid of, all right, it passes through. It makes its way through you, and then there's less fear and less fear and less fear. And so you, in a sense, you reach your hand down to your lower self, to the lowest part of your being. You should not push the lowest part of your being away. People are so busy not judging, etc. Don't judge yourself. Do the best you can at whatever you're doing, and don't be afraid of it going wrong, all right? And so then what you do is you reach down to that lower part of your being, look at him, right?
Yes.
And first say, come here. I want to
Yeah.
help you. I want to help you up. All right. And eventually you get to the point, and I got to that point some years ago, where you apologize to your lower self. You do
Yes.
not like your lower self. I pushed you down there. I didn't
Yes.
know what I was doing. All right. I wasn't wise enough. I wasn't evolved enough to deal with the situation of my life. And all I did was push you away, like locking a child in a closet. They're not going to get better. Right. And so you give them the space to come out. You're the conscious witness, And you're using that consciousness, that awareness to accept and honor and respect the fact that the lowest part of your being can be brought up. And you end up with fear becomes your friend. Every time fear comes up, it reminds you to let go. It's a mantra. What I have found, right, is instead of breaking through, you just raise it up, even if it's slow, just little by little, raise it up by accepting it, honoring it, appreciating it, and being grateful for it. And be grateful for the stimulation that fear creates, not so you can express it, but so that you can transmute it, so you can raise it up.
You know, one of the things I love, you wrote in the book, again, I'm not quoting it exactly, but you said you're not afraid of what's about to happen. You're afraid of how you're going to feel when it happens.
Well, of course,
And
right.
and I don't know if I'm quoting exactly, but that's the essence in this book that I wrote. And I just thought that was so beautiful and brilliant. And I believe that there are certain pieces that, you know, if you just submit to them, you train yourself to be fearful. But that's not what you teach. You're
That's
teaching
right.
instead a willingness to feel and move through it, right? And so
That's right.
my only piece is I have a focus on taking some action. But if you dive into the fear, not pull from it, not retract from it, not pull back, but if you dive into it, the fear is usually because you've anticipated something that isn't real. And if
Yeah.
you start with a belief, a similar belief as you teach in your work, Mickey, which, you know, you're talking about, it's in essence knowing that maybe I've not dealt with this before, but I can handle it. The essence for me is getting people to a place where they identify that who they are or who God is more than anything that could ever happen to me, right? And that life is happening for me, not to me.
Yes.
It may look like it's happening to me, but it's a gift. It's part of that hero's journey. It's evolving me. So,
That's
but I really loved in your book how you did describe things you can do like I would do to take action, to change the body, right? To connect. Because if you shift the body, you're going to shift the emotion. But when it's something, I think, again, I'm not quoting you exactly, but if it's overwhelming, you might share this, Mickey, if you would. You talked about lying on the ground, because I know when you lie on the ground, you
Yeah.
can't, putting your hands on your heart and letting it completely wash over you, which would be
Yeah.
something I would never normally do.
Right.
But I,
That's right.
I believe in areas like where you don't have control, like the death of a friend, like, something outside, you can fight with that all day. You're going to keep fighting it. You're not actually, you're pushing down the feeling as opposed to breaking
Sure.
through, right? And
That's
I think
correct.
that's the semantical difference.
There are emotions that are difficult for us to handle. I will
Yes.
literally say at this stage in a particular person's stage of evolution, they are not able to handle that, right? They can do the best they can. They can practice what Tony does, break through it. They can practice what Mickey says, let it go, right? And it ain't gonna happen, right? And you just get to that point where it's overwhelming. That's the right word. It's
Okay.
overwhelming. But you're willing to try, but it's overwhelming, all right? And what I found very early, because I had those, we all do, very early in my path is I can't rise above it. I'd be pushing it away. That's really, I'm rising above it, but pushing it down. And I learned a
Yeah.
long time ago, suppression is the lowest thing you could ever do. It'll ruin your life. It'll stay with you forever. You don't want to suppress. So what's my choice? Okay. And I would lay down on the ground with my arms out at the side and melt into the floor and raise my chest up. And I would sit there and say to my mother, all right, is take it. I can't raise above
Yes.
it. Will you take it here? Here.
Yes.
I don't want it. I don't want it stuck inside of me. I don't want to have to deal with the rest of my life. Come and take it, right? And you have this feeling that it flows over you instead of you getting above it. And that lets it go. It's a very holy thing to do, all right? It's not that life is happening to you, it's for you. Yogananda, he had this one thing called The Hound of Heaven. That was a poem that somebody wrote. You all look it up because you'll like it. It was about this person who was running away from God, right? But he called it the hound that was chasing him wherever he went. He wouldn't let him have this. That couldn't work. This didn't work, all right? And he kept running away to protect himself. And at the very end of the poem, he says, I'm cornered now. The hound has cornered me. I have no way out. Oh my God. Wait, is it possible that the darkness I was running away from was the shadow of your hand reaching down to pick me up?
Oh,
Wow.
that's beautiful.
It's not up to me. Take me home.
He calls me Dr. Death.
It's your favorite chapter. It's your chapter on
I
death.
know she told me that, right? Contemplating death.
Yes, absolutely. Mickey, I was raised, my father has over 50 some odd years of sobriety, and there was addiction of drugs and heroin and, crack cocaine and different substances in our family, the container of our family. And the prayer of God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's the surrender of the courage to change the things I can, to actually act if we can, to shift, and the wisdom to know the difference. I said that prayer growing up my whole life at AA meetings, and it's such a privilege to be able to actually experience that prayer at this stage of my life. And something that I have found to be quite useful as well, Mickey, is especially in the space of relationship, because sometimes fear can have a mask of intensity because its intention is to protect. And often, Tony always says he stands on stage with 10,000 people, and that's a cakewalk compared to me.
Uh-huh.
So beautiful. But I find to admit, like if I'm just like I'm feeling scared right now, and to put word to that, the awareness of that, then I will just remind myself in the moment that like all is well. And something that you helped me with a number of years ago as well, Mickey. I was going through a really acute time, and I remember sitting outside. I was literally on my knees, and I was crying and I was praying, but I was feeling such a wave of terror, if I'm honest. I felt so just decimated in that moment by life. But I remember just sitting there and like dropping the notion that I'm scared or I'm fearful. And I was just tuning into all the sensations. And your work has really helped me to tune into the sensations because, that's really all that fear is. And I found that that practice has helped me so deeply when things in life can be so acute, paired with the willingness to continue to let go in the name of our peace. Because a lot of times I've also recognized, Mickey, through your work and this practice, is that what mind projects in the future is going to happen. The majority of the time it doesn't. It's a future paced, and we miss this moment. And once again, the power of all the practices that are offered in this book, Wisdom Untethered, are so profound because it puts the empowerment to be able to free ourselves, to understand, to accept, and to embrace the totality of life is really holism. And I really feel that this book is a living reference, a living text, a manuscript that people will return to again and again and again. All of your books have been that for us as a family and for me personally, Mickey. So thank you.
Because they also in relationship, the one area that most people have the most fear is relationship, because nothing can decimate a warrior, man or woman warrior, bring them to their knees in the sense of that they're not enough, the person whose love they crave the most, right? To feel not enough, to feel unloved, to feel worthless is one of the worst feelings on earth. But I think because of that, people have their some scars in your language, Mickey, or they have their anchors, their triggers from the past.
Yeah.
And very often your partner looks angry. Now, I have some experience of this, who's really underneath just scared. And if you can also, stay in that relax, let go stage in the relationship that you
Mm-hmm.
teach, Mickey, it's as important as a relationship with yourself, of course. But also, if you do it with yourself, to be able to do it with others, to understand,
Yes.
have that compassion that what looks like, aggression is just fear,
Mm-hmm.
then it,
Yes.
it calls to you to be closer to your partner. It brings out the soul and spirit and love in you to your partner, and it heals. Whereas usually, it's like those, I think it was the Course in Miracles used to say, there's two forms of communication: a call for help, right, and a loving response. And most people respond to a loving response, we all know, but a call for help doesn't always look like call for help. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you jerk, you whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if you can come to that not with your own crazy response, but a loving response, everything changes.
Yes.
But in order to do that, you have to do what Mickey teaches in this book. You've got to be able to feel the deeper truth and let go of your fear. And I think there are few lessons that are more important in our lives than letting go of fear. And I don't think there's a better book that I've read on
Mm-hmm.
how to do that from multiple angles that are gentle, that are warm, that are loving to yourself. As you said, Mickey, the having compassion for that part of you, not separating that part of you like you're wrong, but apologizing and reconnecting with that part of you. Because otherwise, the more we separate ourselves, the less whole we are, the less whole we are, the less connected to spirit and soul we are, right? So I just think this is a must read for all of you. We're not in this for anything except we want you to get the gifts that this
Yes.
beautiful man has given throughout his life. And I think this, in my experience, all three of your books are extraordinary, but this is my favorite so far.
Wisdom Untethered. It is so ripe and acute on the world stage, and there is such a need. And it is a spiritual text. It's a way to live, it's a way to be. And I just love all that you have poured. You meet the reader where they're at, you meet everyone, this human experience where we're at, and navigating this labyrinth of mind. It's kind, it's beautiful, it's powerful, it's transformational, and it has been such a gift to be with you both. Tammy, thank you for arranging this. And blessings to everybody that is tuning in here today.
You cannot control the external world, but we have absolute direction of this internal world if we relax, if we let go, if we trust in something larger than ourselves, and if we have an intention to serve something more. And Mickey, you don't talk about it, you don't write about it, you embody it.
Yeah.
Sage, Tony, Michael Singer, celebrating Wisdom Untethered. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
We love you.